to PED Stephen to go through our birthdays and anniversary for this. PED Stephen.
Yes, thank you, President Junior. Good evening, everyone.
Yes.
Good evening, guests. Good evening, fellow Kiwanians. We celebrate this week birthdays and anniversaries of fellow Kiwanians. We don't have a long list today. Actually, it's just one wedding anniversary that falls in the month of the week this week.
Yes.
And it's no other than DLG elect Desmond Batchelor and his wife Yvette on the 25th celebrate their wedding anniversary. I was checking to see if the DLG was online, but I didn't see him. I know he was present at the earlier district meeting, but please extend to him and Yvette a special wedding anniversary when it comes. I think that's Friday, the 25th, and all the best to them.
Thank you, sir.
So, oh, you
Yeah.
are here.
Yes, he's very much good.
Okay. So best wishes to you and your wife.
Thank you so much.
Make sure you plan something nice just to celebrate all of the hours that you have spent with Kiwanis. I'm sure she will appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. Also, I extend an invitation to anybody else who's on the meeting, any of our guests, SLP members who are celebrating a birthday or anniversary or anything special that they'd like to share. If not, I looked and see if there was any famous celebrity who celebrated a birthday today or this week. And interesting enough, on the musical and on the reggae side, Beenie Man celebrates his birthday today, the 22nd. Those of you who are dancehall fans or reggae fans, Beenie Man, believe it or not, is 50 years old today. So he goes across generations, older generations. You recorded his first song when he was 8 years old. And 42 years later, he's still recording and still making an impact on Jamaican music and dancehall worldwide. So kudos to Beenie Man and all of his fans near and far. If there's anybody else who if nobody else has a birthday, I will close off on this section and pass the mic back to you, President Junior. Looking forward to
Thank you.
Dr. Andy's presentation this evening.
Thank you, PED Stephen. I can't believe that Beenie Man is all at 50 years old already.
Yeah, believe it or not.
Time goes by, right. So we move on to the next item on our agenda, which is Kiwanis education. And who is better to do that than our own LGD? LGD?
Thank you, President Junior. Good evening, fellow Kiwanians and SLP members and guests. I'll talk about the objects of Kiwanis International, the meaning of the object, 6 objects. These are the guiding principles which aim to improve the world by making lasting differences in the lives of people. The objects were approved by Kiwanis Club delegate at the 1924 Kiwanis International Convention in Denver, Colorado, and have remained unchanged since. These are intended to inspire Kiwanians to live by ethical values, to treat others with respect and kindness, to strive for excellence in our endeavors, to contribute positively to society, to foster friendship among peers and service to communities, and to uphold the ideals of democracy and peace. And I highlight the 5th object is a way to create lasting bonds among members who share the same values and goals, and at the same time help children and build communities. Kiwanis clubs offer opportunities for members to interact with each other, to learn from each other, and to support each other in their personal and professional lives. By so doing, we aim to improve the quality of life and well-being of the people we serve, as well as to foster a sense of civic responsibility and pride. That's it for Kiwanis Education, President Junior.
Good, good, and thank you, LGD Desmond.
My pleasure.
Now, we get to our main item on the agenda, and we are going to be talking about dengue tonight and all that we need to know about it. Our own Dr. Andy Baptiste will lead this discussion first tonight, make the presentation, and to introduce the guest speaker is Chairman Dr. Andrew Dyer. So we now have the introduction of our guest. Is he here?
Yes, I'm here. I'm
oh,
here.
You're here. Oh, yeah, good. Good. I was looking for it, didn't see on that, but.
So, Andy Samuels John Baptiste is a St. Lucia national who graduated from the Latin America School of Medicine in Cuba. After the completion of his undergraduate studies, he worked with the Ministry of Health and Wellness of St. Lucia, specifically at the Victoria Hospital in Castries. Dr. Jean-Baptiste served a 3.5-year tenure at the Victoria Hospital and was attached predominantly to its accident and emergency department. He subsequently served in the Department of Internal Medicine at the University Hospital of the West Indies for 4 years. He has a passion for internal medicine and a special interest in geriatrics, which is a subspecialty of the discipline. He currently practices privately as a general practitioner. And guests, help me welcome our special guest, Dr. Jean Baptiste.
Good.
Hey, good night, everybody. Can I just be allowed? Do I have rights to share screen?
You may,
Yes.
Chairman.
Okay, thanks.
Are you not able to share?
I am having some difficulty on my end, but
Oh, you're inside. Okay.
Right.
You are sharing now, Doc.
Okay, good night, everybody, and welcome to another Kiwanis meeting. It is my pleasure to be able to present tonight. And tonight we'll be speaking on dengue, all that we need to know. Now, dengue is a viral infection that spreads from mosquitoes to people. And it is more common in the tropical and subtropical climates. Dengue, of course, is often referred to as breakbone fever. And again, that is largely due to that excruciating pain that patients would report, joint pain that they would report when they get dengue. Now, as it pertains to the epidemiology of dengue, about half of the world's population is now at risk with dengue, an estimated 100 to 400 million infections occurring each year. Dengue is found, as I said previously, in the tropical and subtropical climates worldwide. There are 4 strains of the dengue virus. Dengue virus strain 1 through to 4. As it pertains to some local data on dengue, there was a press release in August on August 17, 2023 by Ministry of Health and Wellness, which reported that there was an increase in dengue cases. And as I said previously, there are 4 strains, and there was a particular increase in type 2 dengue. So how does dengue spread? Dengue spreads when an uninfected mosquito, and I should take this opportunity to say at this time that the Aedes aegypti mosquito is the primary vector for transmitting dengue. Although there are other mosquitoes in the Aedes family that can transmit dengue, the Aedes aegypti mosquito is the primary vector for transmission of dengue. So when an uninfected person who has dengue stings a person, sorry, let me reverse a bit. When an uninfected mosquito stings a person who is infected with dengue, that mosquito now is able to transmit dengue to a human who otherwise is healthy. I'm going to go through that again. When an uninfected Aedes aegypti mosquito stings a person who is infected, that mosquito now carries the dengue virus and is able to infect another human. Now, just some fascinating mosquito facts. The first thing is that male mosquitoes are smaller than females, and we will see that often in the animal kingdom, where a lot of male, the male species is smaller. Both male and female mosquitoes feed on nectar. However, only the female feeds on blood. Now, male mosquitoes tend to live an average of 6 to 7 years. However, the female mosquito on average can live a lifespan of 6 weeks. And if she is adequately fed, she can survive up to 5 months. Now, just thinking on what change there is in the diet, it gives you a whole different, it brings a whole new meaning of the phrase that there is power in the blood. Just feasting on blood, the female mosquito is able to survive up to 5 months in comparison to the male mosquito who survives 6 to 7 days. Now, as it pertains to signs and symptoms of dengue, most persons may have mild or no symptoms for dengue, and within 1 or 2 weeks, they tend to become better. And I say this, that a lot of persons don't realize that they've had dengue not until they are actually tested for dengue. And although they may not have dengue currently, their blood test may show that they had a previous infection. And that is so because the symptoms of dengue can be very...
Rusty.
I mean, I look muted.
Somebody's unmuted. And that is so because the symptoms of dengue can be non-specific. Common symptoms or signs of dengue: high fever, usually about 40 degrees Celsius, 104 Fahrenheit, severe headache, pain, which is retroorbital, meaning pain which is felt behind the eyes, muscle and joint pains. Persons can have nausea, lymph or vomiting. They can have swollen glands, swollen lymph nodes, what is locally referred to as wax and cannon. Some persons produce a rash, and some of those persons actually go on to have severe dengue. Now, going back to what we said previously, that a lot of persons can have mild symptoms or no symptoms at all, and perhaps not even realize that they have dengue. When you think about some of the symptoms, nausea, muscle pain, joint pain, headache, fever, thinking about illnesses such as the common cold that can give you headache, fever, you can have a certain amount of generalized malaise, not feeling well at all, and joint pain and muscle pain. The hot topic for a long period of time now, COVID gives you some of those similar symptoms, right? And a few years ago, we also had to contend with Zika and chikungunya, which also presents similar symptoms. We mentioned that some patients can have, or some persons can have severe dengue. And these signs are usually severe abdominal pain, persistent vomiting, rapid breathing, bleeding from the gums or nose, and not just from the gums or nose, but bleeding from any orifice at all. One can present bleeding in their urine. Females who otherwise have normal periods can have excessive bleeding during their periods or prolonged bleeding with their periods. They can also have blood in their vomit or even in their stool. And these persons, as it pertains to having blood in the stool or in their vomit, is because dengue virus tend to cause changes in your body's ability to form clots. And we'll see in complications of dengue later how it basically changes the balance of all the substances that are necessary for perfect equilibrium in the blood. Persons can become pale or cold, and they can become extremely thirsty. And of course, that is because they would have what is referred to as shock, which is being produced by the severe illness. With the fever and on a background of the vomiting, one can become extremely dehydrated. And when that happens, the amount of fluid that circulates within your circulatory system or within your veins, to make it easily understood, that amount of blood, that volume decreases, and that can lead to shock. This slide just seeks to address some of the symptoms that we would have mentioned before. It's a bit blurry, and I apologize for that. Sudden fever, and as we said, it can be up to 40 degrees Celsius or 104 degrees Fahrenheit. Severe headaches, nausea and vomiting, pain that radiates from the back of the eye, severe joint pain and muscle pain, and persons can have a rash on their body, and they can have bleeding from the nose, the mouth, and other orifices, as we said previously. In terms of complications of dengue, now, as I mentioned previously, dengue disturbs the body's ability to regulate bleeding or control bleeding. Some of the substances that are necessary to ensure that bleeding does not occur, or to ensure that clotting occurs when necessary, such as when you get a cut, if you have no known illnesses. When you get a cut, after a while, the body would form clots in an attempt to control that bleeding that would be resultant from that cut. However, in the presence of dengue, because dengue throws off that whole equilibrium, dengue also causes a reduction in the amount of platelets, a key cell that is responsible for formation of clots. And as such, bleeding becomes very easy. And I forgot to mention that persons can also have bleeding in the lung, bleeding essentially anywhere. They can have bleeding internally, in the digestive tract, in the lungs. You could have bleeding in the brain also. And that is because of the effect of dengue. Dengue also affects the liver extensively. And as I said before, because of the fever makes one dehydrated. The vomiting contributes to dehydration, and not just losing fluid, but if one is constantly vomiting, they're not taking in as much fluid as they should, and that contributes to a progressive reduction in the amount of fluid that's circulating in your veins. Now, how can we prevent the spread of dengue? And just before, how can we prevent the spread of dengue? We want to eliminate all breeding grounds for the mosquito. And this is something that every single person can do. It does not need a national response for us to clean around our house. If everyone takes responsibility to ensuring that we eliminate all breeding grounds for the mosquito, then that will contribute to a significant reduction in the transmission of dengue. If there are any leaks around the house from our plumbing system where water can pool, especially on concrete, it serves as a breeding ground for mosquitoes. Persons who have ponds nearby and ponds that may not necessarily have any fishes in there or any animals that actually feed on mosquitoes or on mosquito larvae, then it's advised that goldfishes, or there are other fishes that can be used to put into ponds. On that matter of fishes, I recall in 2012, while pursuing undergraduate studies in Cuba, there had been an outbreak in both cholera and dengue. It had started initially in Haiti, but because of the proximity between the neighboring islands, of course, persons moved freely and it became a major concern. And one of the things that government did, in most houses where tanks are not readily available, persons would often have metal drums to store water. And the government actually encouraged them to have fishes in those tanks to basically consume whatever mosquito larvae that would have been produced from breeding sites. Bird baths, a lovely site, accentuates gardens, but bird baths are a breeding ground for mosquitoes. And as such, they ought to be cleaned frequently, right? The guttering, or rain gutters as they're also called, of houses, when there are overhanging trees, the leaves that fall from those trees can block those gutters and prevent free flow of water. And of course, after downpour of rain, then the water pools in the gutters and serves as a breeding ground for mosquitoes. If there are any forms of stagnant water, those who love plants, those who love flowers, usually there are those small dishes, for lack of the proper nomenclature for them, to the base of the flower pot. It's advisable that these are emptied often. If you have watered your flowers and you may have given a little bit too much, that's referring to your potted plants, that is. It's advisable that you pour that water out. Now, we're in a time of water scarcity, going through a drought currently, so I would not say to throw that water away, but at least pour it into a recipient that can be sealed. All right. The use of screens on our windows to prevent the entry of mosquitoes also helps to prevent bites. The use of mosquito nets. Now, the time is extremely hot, and I know from experience that mosquito nets, they don't have the situation at all. That especially considering a time when the number of dengue cases are increasing. And if you live in an area that is well known for having lots of mosquitoes, you may live near a pond, near a gully, any area that serves as a great breeding ground for mosquitoes. It's advisable that you use mosquito nets. The use of mosquito repellents are also recommended.
Sorry, Chairman Andy, 1 second, please. PDT Ralston, I think that's your microphone that's open. Thank you.
The use of mosquito repellents are also recommended. But if you notice that I have placed more focus on the things that we can actually do to prevent the breeding of mosquitoes. And of course, the list goes on. When we have used tires that are not being put to any maybe decor within the house, it's important that if they are serving as a recipient for water, downpour of rain, that they're emptied immediately. As a matter of fact, it's usually advised that tires are slashed if possible and turned over so that water cannot pool in those tires. Often you would see at construction sites, and if there are any persons involved in construction, I'm not intentionally trying to step on toes, but it's a common sight to see water pooling in troughs, especially after the downpour of rain in the rainy season. We happen to be in the rainy season, but we haven't had much rain. Good and bad. Yes, we need the rain, but considering that there is an increase in the cases of dengue, we can also say thank God for small mercies in that regard. Bottles and containers should not be left lying around the place. They should be disposed of appropriately because they can serve for a breeding ground for mosquitoes. Some more fun facts about mosquitoes. Mosquitoes only need a tablespoon of water to breed. Can you imagine a tablespoon of water? And when you consider all the previous breeding sites that we would have mentioned, that is ample water that we're giving those mosquitoes to be able to breed. The egg collection can be made 3 days following blood feeding. And of course, as we said previously, only the female mosquito feeds on blood. Now, the female Aedes aegypti mosquito can lay as many as 100 to 150 eggs every time. Each time she lays eggs, she can lay as much as 100 to 150 eggs. We've already established that the female mosquito lives, on average, she has a lifespan of 6 weeks, but can live up to 5 months if she's adequately fed. And in that lifespan, she can lay as many as 3 times. Now, 3 times 150, I usually tell patients I don't do math after 12. But according to what I have here, she can lay at least 300 to 450 eggs, in her lifetime, at least. What is even more worrisome about that is that the eggs of the Aedes aegypti mosquito can last 8 months dry. I want you to listen again and ruminate a bit on this statement. The eggs of the Aedes aegypti mosquito can last 8 months without water. Let's suppose that it's not the peak season for rain. We've already established that a tablespoon, just a tablespoon of water is sufficient for the mosquito to breed, to lay her eggs. If she gets a tablespoon of water in the dry season, she can lay up to 100 to 150 eggs. We're talking about ample time, considering that those eggs only require 8 months to hatch. We're referring to ample time. And small wonder why after just a little bit of rain, we have an increasing amount of dengue cases. And if we were not conscious of eliminating breeding grounds for dengue before, I hope we're 100-fold more sensitized about the severity of dengue and the severity of the fight against dengue. Prevention cannot be emphasized enough, understanding the complications of dengue. And a lot of the prevention is heavily dependent on what we do, our lifestyle. No more improper disposal of garbage. One might be walking on the road and think, oh, it's just a sweetie wrapper, or it's just a cheese tricks wrapper I'm throwing on the road, or just a cover or an empty yogurt container, but that alone serves as a breeding ground. Just 1 tablespoon of water for a mosquito, female mosquito, to lay her eggs. So we saw in prevention so far the elimination of breeding grounds, potential breeding grounds, is one of the ways that we can prevent the spread of dengue. Another way that we could prevent the spread of dengue, and I'm not sure if this should be, this is both prevention as it pertains to complications of dengue, because there are vaccines that have been created for dengue. As it stands, the only FDA-approved vaccine against dengue is Dengue, which was first licensed in Mexico in 2015 for individuals between the age of 9 and 45 who lived in endemic areas. Interesting to know that initially when Dengue started to create a buzz, only 11 territories, mostly Latin American territories, and Brazil being one of the few Portuguese territories to use dengue vaccine. Now dengue vaccine is licensed in 20 countries and is the only FDA approved vaccine for dengue. Of course, interesting to know that FDA, CDC rather, only approves the use of dengue vaccine in persons who are 6 to 16 years of age, largely because the clinical trials were heavily done in that group. Now, dengue vaccine, there are 3 doses of the vaccine given. First dose, which is basically at 0 months, the second at 6 months, and the third at 12 months. Of note, the dengue vaccine, is only given to persons who have already had dengue. If you haven't had dengue as yet, you don't qualify for dengue vaccine. And that is so because it has been found that persons who have had one previous, sorry about that. Let me just exit WhatsApp off my phone, off my screen, apologies. It is so because persons who have had previous infections of dengue, they're at risk of having severe dengue. And this is where you would see all the bleeding and shock happening from dengue. So in order to mitigate or in order to reduce the severity of persons who are already at risk by virtue of having a previous infection, that vaccine is used. Now, I'm not sure of the availability of the vaccine in Jamaica, and it would be really interesting to know if it is available here in Jamaica. There are other vaccines such as TV's 003 and TDNV-PIP and V180 that are currently in different stages of the clinical trials of the vaccine. But they're, as it stands, the only vaccine that is approved for dengue, for the use in dengue, is Denvaxia. And why is it not recommended in persons who haven't had dengue before? Simply because having the Denvaxia vaccine predispose persons who were otherwise never infected by dengue to have severe dengue. So it benefits those who have had previous infections to not have severe dengue, but for those who've never had dengue before and decide to have the vaccine, they're at risk of having severe dengue. And important to know that in order for persons to be recipients of dengue vaccine, they must have documented proof that they've had dengue before. This is how important it is to ascertain that a person has had a previous infection of dengue. Otherwise, administering the vaccine would be potentially more harm than good. So genetically modified mosquitoes, genetically modified mosquitoes have created great buzz in recent time. And they have been used in Florida, they've been used in Australia, and many countries are now following suit. And what is this great buzz with genetically modified mosquitoes? How do they work? There is a bacteria called Wolbachia bacteria. Now that bacteria is usually found in a few butterflies, a few beetles, and other insects. Now Wolbachia bacteria. Wolbachia bacteria is not found in the Aedes aegypti mosquito, right? What scientists now have done is to introduce Wolbachia into the Aedes aegypti mosquito. When that happens, infected males, they mate with wild female Aedes aegypti mosquitoes who otherwise don't have Wolbachia. The Wolbachia bacteria now prevents the eggs of that female from hatching. So now you have eggs that are not hatching, and because of that, it contributes to a decrease in the number of Aedes aegypti mosquitoes, now particularly female, that can contribute to the propagation of the virus. So just to recap our preventative measures, we've seen genetically modified mosquitoes, we've seen the use of vaccines, and we discussed eliminating breeding grounds. And of all the three preventative methods listed, the one that is most readily available to us requires no cost at all to us. And if we just consciously eliminate all possible breeding grounds for mosquitoes around our houses, in our workplaces, then we can actively contribute to the ongoing battle against dengue, both locally and internationally by extension. This has been the end of my presentation, and I hope that it was simple enough for all to understand. And I hope that we've become more sensitized as it pertains to dengue. At this time, if you have any questions on what was discussed, I will be happy to answer them.
Well done.
Okay, thank you, Dr.
Well done, well done.
Thank you, Dr. Jean Baptiste. I do have a question. We're going to open the floor, of course, but I do have two questions I want to ask. I think the first one might be shorter. Most species of anything, you know, even the most things that are considered as nuisances have some value. Can you tell me what value mosquitoes have? I mean, you know, maybe they have some, they contribute in some way to the environment. I don't know. Can you tell me if they have any?
Here is a fun fact for you. Because both male and female mosquitoes feed on nectar, they actually assist in pollination.
Oh, okay. I just thought there might be some use for them, even though they are a nuisance. And the other thing I wanted to ask you, and it's not really part of your presentation, but since malaria is also spread, I think, through mosquitoes, could you give us some kind of just touch a little bit? I don't mean going through the whole thing, but what are the similarities? I think one is a virus and one is something else. Virus based and one is something else. Yes.
Malaria is actually spread by mosquito, is actually spread by the Anopheles mosquito. And of course, malaria tends to happen it tends to be more prominent in areas that are endemic. There are similar symptoms in terms of the fever, and the onset, the duration of the fever is one of the distinguishing factors with malaria. Whereas persons tend to have dengue symptoms that may go up to 1 to 2 weeks. Ideally, usually by day 5 of fever, there tends to be a downward trend in fever and they improve. It's a bit more extensive with malaria. Also, whereas in the case of malaria, if you're traveling to an area that's endemic for malaria, one can receive a medication, what we refer to as prophylactic or preventative medication for prevention for malaria. Conversely, with dengue, there is no medication that is preventative for dengue or even curative, to say the least. The medication that is available for the treatment geared towards dengue rather is largely supportive. Supportive meaning in the case where there is fever, you're given medication to bring down the fever. And I must say, it was not my intention to dabble or touch treatments with dengue, but I've seen that there is an increase in the numbers of dengue. I want to say, if you have fever, yes, I know that under other circumstances, when persons have fever, they might actually use paracetamol, Tylenol that has the same basic ingredient as paracetamol, or even Aleve or ibuprofen for fever. But in the case of dengue, you really want to stay away from medications such as Aleve and Advil and ibuprofen, because these medications belong to a group called non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. And what they do, they can cause bleeding. Now, understanding and appreciating what we previously said with regards to dengue in of itself contributing to bleeding, taking those medications, what it does is actually increases your risk of bleeding.
Okay.
I hope I've answered your question.
Yes, thank you very much. The floor is open. Any of our guests or fellow Kiwanians, you are free to ask a question. You can do so by raising your hand. I don't see any hands raised. Desmond, you see any?
Yes, well, I'm putting up one. There's one.
Where is it? I'm funny, I'm not seeing
it's
it.
mine. It's mine.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. Great presentation, Chairman Andy. Learn a lot. I have two questions. You said that it's only the female Aegis aegypti that is interested in blood. Does that mean that each time that I get bitten by a mosquito, it's a female?
Yes, it's a female, my brother. It's a female.
Oh, and the other thing is, I know you said that the female lives for 6 weeks, but with blood they can go up to what, 5 months?
5 months.
What's the I can't remember what you said is the lifespan of the male.
6 to 7 days.
6 to 7 days.
6 to 7.
So in the world of mosquito, the female is king and queen.
It's king and queen, correct.
All right, sir. Thank you. Great presentation.
One thing I didn't quite get. I don't know if you could just go over it. Okay, there's a hand up. There's a hand up. Let's take that. Crystal, go ahead.
Thank you, PE. Okay, just give it to him for me. All right, so finally somebody is here to fix my vehicle. All right, Dr. Baptiste, are you saying that eventually the Wolbachia will actually take over all the Aedes aegypti mosquitoes and will be free of dengue?
Bear in mind that is largely dependent, I should say, in areas where it is released. It is released regularly and in a controlled manner by persons. And I don't know the extent to which mosquitoes travel. In my reading, they can travel 40 miles, up to 40 miles for feed. But just thinking of how much of that effect that we will benefit from when mosquitoes are released from Florida and Australia, if we will have any benefit at all, I am not certain that it will. But the overall idea is that it is at least contributing to a decrease in the amount of persons that are infected with dengue. How that in turn will reach us, bear in mind that persons travel. And if an infected person from the US or Australia or anywhere else where the mosquitoes that have been genetically modified with Wolbachia exist, if an infected person from that terrain travels to Jamaica, then that puts us at risk of having dengue when an uninfected 83-time mosquito stings them and later stings somebody who's otherwise well. So that is how we would benefit from the effect of decreasing the amount of Aedes aegypti mosquitoes in those areas where it's released. But I think it's going to be a very long road to benefit from that.
Okay, thank you, Doc. And this research started in 2002 or is it 2020? I think it's somewhere near.
From my reading, it was
the Wolbachia program.
From what I came up in my reading, I think it was there was a release in 2022, but some research had started prior.
Okay, thank you.
Newton, you have your hand up again. You wanted to follow up something?
Yes, if nobody else is going, a question I'd like to ask, Doc, is I know you said that the pain and so you call it breakbone, whatever, which means the pain must be high. But what is the likelihood of dying if you were to catch dengue?
So just to say that the pain is not what usually causes death in patients, but rather the complications of dengue. As we said before, bleeding on because of that disturbance in the equilibrium of all the factors that contribute to normal blood clotting, and that disturbance existing predisposes one to actually have bleeding. And when that happens, already if the amount of blood circulating in your body is very limited or low because of your vomiting, your fever, your poor intake, because you're so sick or because you're constantly vomiting that you're not feeding, that decreased volume of blood is a contributing factor leading to death. And of course, depending on the extent of the bleed, bleeding in the lung, internal organs, bleeding in the brain, all of those are factors that contribute to death.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Doc.
Okay. Are there any other questions?
The President Stacy has in the group, in the chat, how often do we need to call for mosquito control solutions?
As often as you think it's necessary.
I guess she means from the state. Is that what you mean? Or the parish council or whatever?
You mean from the state?
She's in Jamaica here. Says we have spray in our community weekly.
Oh, I would like to think that the local government or parish council have, perhaps I would like to think that there are set times for fumigation. But as I emphasized before, I think that there is much more need for an individual response to limiting the spread of dengue, meaning eliminating breeding grounds versus fumigation. Yes, while fumigation help. But if the lifestyle, if the practices of the population is not changed, fumigation in a population that is unperturbed about lifestyles that contribute to breeding grounds of mosquitoes, it's just like washing your hands and drying it in dirt. It will be constantly necessary to fumigate if persons don't change their lifestyle. And that's why I kept on emphasizing on eliminating breeding grounds around the home, because it's something everyone can do, and it does not cost any money to properly dispose of your garbage, to turn around your to empty your bird bath if you realize that there are mosquito larvae in there. It doesn't cost anything at all. And it's even, suffice it to say, it's even a more immediate response versus waiting for fumigation that will be organized by the state.
Can I ask a follow-up question to that one?
Sure.
Does the fumigation kill the mosquito, or does it kill the eggs, or both?
So it kills the mosquito. I can't speak for eggs because bear in mind, if we're referring to eggs that are dried, how much of that becomes affected by fumigation? But I can speak comfortably and say that it affects the mosquito. The other thing is, everything has a side effect, or everything has a downside. In Cuba, what they've realized is that while fumigation has proven to be very effective in combating mosquitoes, they've actually realized that the butterfly population has also decreased. So while we cry out, or while we call out for fumigation, it comes at a risk. And again, I'm emphasizing once more, elimination of breeding grounds for mosquitoes, because again, there is no risk associated, and it's very cost effective to us.
Okay.
Thank you.
And there's a question, might be a silly question, what attracts mosquitoes near you? Yes, persons, there's a saying, mosquitoes are attracted to dark colors. Yes, that is true. Oh, another fun fact, yes, mosquitoes are attracted to some persons more than others. I was actually surprised that that was true. That was actually documented on, often persons say fresh blood, and that's why they get bitten. So yes, mosquitoes favor some persons more than the others, but certainly dark colors attract mosquitoes.
That is something I was about to ask, because I know a situation where people are in a group and mosquitoes are there, but not everybody is complaining. You know, it's like so you could say that mosquito know who for frightened, or who they must bite.
No,
could it be a sign that if the mosquitoes don't bite you, could that be a sign that something is wrong with you?
Or maybe it could just be a sign of natural selection.
Okay.
Or one is perhaps just too sweet. We will never know.
Okay.
Doc, DP still.
Yes.
Junior, let me just confirm this. Did you say that? I'm not sure. That only the female bites, or it's only if the female bites it?
Only the female feeds on blood, and that is because that long spout-like thing that we see, I think it's called a proboscis. The female has a longer proboscis a stronger proboscis than the male. It's also longer, and it is needle-like, so the female is able to bore the skin.
Okay.
And the male can't.
But they will pitch on you one another.
Pardon me?
They will pitch on you, just to see it.
The males, yes, they may pitch on you, but they will not bite.
Okay.
Okay. All right. I think that seems that we have exhausted the questions. So it's time to ask.
Section.
It's time to ask
It's
Dr. Martinez.
Dr.
Hello.
Chairman
No.
Avian.
Avian Shaw. To do the thank you.
Yeah, Chairman Avian.
Okay. A very special good evening to everyone. I have the distinction of expressing our deepest gratitude to our fellow Kiwanians and designates on behalf of the Kiwanis Club of Kingston family. Wait, are you guys hearing me?
Yes.
Okay.
Loud and clear.
Okay, so I'd like to rather express our gratitude to our visitors for joining us tonight. Without you all, this evening's meeting would not have been a success. On behalf of everyone who attended this meeting, including those who are no longer present, I thank Dr. Andy Baptiste for his educational and interesting presentation. We appreciate you very much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to put together this well-executed, seamless information, because I am confident that the information was well received. Very interesting information from the transmission of the disease to the prevention, and the emphasis placed on the importance of individual response to the prevention of dengue. And in light of the rise in mosquito-borne disease cases since the beginning of the year, I would also like to express thanks to DP Stewart for organizing this considerably relevant presentation with not only a qualified but expert in the field speaker. Once again, everyone, thank you for joining us. Be sure to join us again next week. And please remember, safe you should stay. Keep the mosquitoes away. Have a wonderful rest of the evening. Stay blessed.
Thank you, Chairman.
And there is a certificate of appreciation. We do that for all our guest speakers, even if they are one of our own. And I owe you one before.
Yes.
But I have it. Okay, back to you, President Junior.
But we make sure that he gets it, right?
Yes, we will.
Thank you again, Doc. Well received, very good presentation. And we now move to our chair, to our Sarge. Sarge, are you on?
I think so.
You think so?
Yeah. Are you seeing me?
No, I'm not seeing you yet. I'm seeing myself. And I know I'm not the Sarge.
It seems you're looking in a mirror. Good evening, everyone.
Yes.
Tonight I'm going to
Good
be
evening,
telling you
Sarge.
about,
Good evening.
tonight I'm telling you about this man who he went into a bar and he announced to the people at the bar that his wife just had a 20-pound baby. So the bartender looked at him in shock. Because she's like, 20 pounds? He says, yes. And he bragged about his 20-pound baby. The next day he went back to the same bar. So out of curiosity, the bartender asked him, how is your 20-pound baby doing? So he said, the baby is now 15 pounds. Bartender looked at him curiously. 15 pounds? He said, yes, we had him circumcised. Now for the charge. VP Stephen, for wearing their hat in the building during the conference on Sunday, $250. Well, you're $250. Sir Radcliffe, for the free advertisement of your chef services, $250. PD Newton, for skipping the food line, failure to follow instructions, giving an excuse for your failure to follow instructions, not knowing who Chairman Arsenio was, calling him by the incorrect name, Owen, $1,250.
Yeah.
Chairman Andrew, who informed me that he would not be able to attend the conference because he will be in office. Turns out his office has a pool, $250. Ralston, for your 2 open mic interruptions and leaving the conference before your presentation, $750. And Chairman Arsenio, for repeated failure to turn on your camera, resulting in the PD's case of mistaken identity, $250. So remember, indemnity is over, so the charges will be posted in the room, and persons who are charged, you know what to do. Have a good evening, gentlemen, and everyone else.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarge. That was good, very observant. So we'll now move to notices and announcements. Secretary Willie. Any notice and announcement?
Thank you, President Junior. Insofar as notices and announcements, board members, officers and directors, please note that tomorrow evening we'll be having a hybrid meeting. We have a face-to-face meeting along with a virtual meeting. This is an emergency board meeting. And basically to look at the implications of the increase in dues by Kiwanis International and how it will affect our club. We'll also be looking at the draft budget for 2023 to 24 and the status of members with outstanding dues. As I said, this will be a hybrid meeting. DP Stewart will be sending out the link in the morning. We have a number of board members who are off the island. In fact, there are 3 members, and they have all confirmed with me that they will be there online tomorrow evening. So, board members, please note, for a quorum, we need 6 + 1. We can't take any decisions unless we have that quorum tomorrow.
Okay.
Speaking of the Christmas ball, VP designate Garfield Wint has agreed to chair the committee, and he'll be hosting the first meeting on Wednesday, September the 6th at his home. I sent out an email this morning to members of the committee and asked them to save the date in their diaries. And just a note that past director and distinguished member Easton McKinley has confirmed a date for the health fair at the Tarleton Methodist Church on Slipe Road. It's going to be held on Thursday, September 21. As we all know, this is a health fair where we engage our doctors and we do checkups on the children of the adjoining basic school. Those are these announcements for the time being. Insofar as interclubs, I will send out the schedule in the morning. However, there's one that was announced by Kiwanis Club of Kingston last night. I believe it has to do with their bingo. I know the chairman, Bridget is there, that she can give us some more information on their bingo, whether it's tomorrow night or the following Wednesday. Thank you, President Junior. That's it.
On mute, President. On mute, President.
Are there anybody else that would like to offer any announcements or any notices at this time? From any other clubs or so on? Anybody else would like to?
Yes, President Junior.
Go ahead.
Good evening, everyone.
Very good evening to you, ma'am.
Crystal Heaven from the Kiwanis Club of Montego Bay. Just a quick announcement. We'll be having our joint installation ceremony and changing of the guard for Division 25 Cornwall, joint with Montego Freeport as well as Montego West Village. The date is the 24th of September, which is a Sunday. The cost is $7,000. You're all invited. It will be held at the Holiday Inn Beach Resort, and it's going to be fabulous. Also, we'll be having our usual Thursday meeting. What I can do is to forward it to DP Stewart. He's in charge of interclubbing,
Yes.
and so you can forward it to the rest of the group. Thank you, President Junior. Back over to you.
Yes, and thank you. Okay.
Good evening, everyone.
President.
Good evening,
Yes.
everyone. This is President Antoinette from the Kiwanis Club of Kingston. On Saturday, on this Saturday coming, will be our retro party to be held at the NHT overtime, sorry. It's on the top floor of the car park. Cost is only $2,000. We are expecting everyone online and all clubs represented here to be in attendance. It's going to be a lovely night. It's a retro party, best of the 90s. See you all there.
Good. Is that the NHT head office?
Yes, NHT head office on the top floor of the car park.
The car park.
Yes.
Okay, good. Put it,
Through
put
you,
it
President.
in the chat. Yes, how are you doing?
I am well, thank you. Good evening. This is Chair Bridget, Secretary Designate for Kiwanis Club of New Kingston. And we would like to invite everyone here online to our meeting next week, Wednesday. We are having our bingo, and it's $500 for entrance. You get your set of tickets to play bingo. We have some interesting prizes. So we'd like to see everybody out next week, Wednesday at the Police Officers Club. We start our meeting at 6 p.m.
That's New Kingston.
That's correct.
Yes. Any other announcements, notices? If not, we move to the start of the week by Chairman D.P. Stewart.
Thank you, President Junior.
Yes.
That's one little correction. I'm not chairman for interclubbing, but I can circulate. No, I think Crystal styled me as the chair for interclubbing. I just wanted to correct that.
No, yes,
I can circulate.
You will circulate.
Yeah.
Thanks, DP. Thank
Sure.
you.
No problem. And the other thing I want to say before I give the thought is that next week, Tuesday, is a 5th Tuesday. And as a result, we're going to be having our games evening at the Secretariat. So you're all invited. Okay. You know, you can bring your own games. We'll have some, but we would love to have you. So a little advanced advertising. Okay. There are just two thoughts.
That is good.
Mm-hmm. This one is just something to think about. It says thousands of candles can be lit from a single candle, and the life of the candle will not be shortened as a result. So keep that in mind. And then there's another one. There's only one way to avoid criticism. Do nothing, say nothing, and be nothing. And those are my two thoughts.
Which is not good.
Exactly.
Good.
Okay.
Thank you for those thoughts, DP Stu.
Sure.
So if there's nothing more to discuss at this time, I just ask all of you.
President
yes,
Junior.
good. I heard you. Go on.
Okay. Before you wrap up, sir. Just permit me to say that the last DP Stewart just announced that we have games evening next week. I just want to say the last one was so good. Right. The last one was so good that even though it was just a few of us, we left there at minutes to 11. It was that good.
Right.
So don't miss it.
Yes. Thank you for that. Feeding you. Okay, if there's nothing more to discuss, I would like us all at this time to raise our glasses and drink a toast to Kiwanis International, friendly Jamaica, or Jamaica land we love. Good night to you all. Thank you for coming, and I'm sure we enjoy every moment of this week's meeting. Thank you again for coming, man. If you don't have to rush off at this time, I'd ask you to sit back, relax, and listen to some music from DP Stewart.